Long before there were kings or cities or written laws, something walked the earth that was not fully human and not fully angel either. The Bible called them the Nephilim. Some say they were giants. Some say their fathers were angels who broke the rules of heaven. And even after the flood wiped out almost everyone on earth, the Bible says they showed up again. Which raises a question the Bible never fully answers, and one we'll come back to before the end. So how were the Nephilim able to survive the flood? In this video, we go through the whole story. The Word, the angels, the giants, and the ancient scroll that finally gives the giants a voice of their own. A scroll that, once you hear what's inside it, changes the way this entire story feels. Let's start with the word itself. Because to understand the Nephilim, we first have to understand their name. In the original Hebrew Bible, they are called the Nephilim. Many scholars connect this word to the Hebrew root naphal, which means to fall. Under this reading, Nephilim could mean the fallen ones, or even those who cause others to fall. That second meaning paints a picture of violent men who knock down everyone in their path. But here's where it gets messy. If you build the word fallen ones the normal way in Hebrew, it does not come out as Nephilim. It comes out differently. So some scholars say the real answer is not Hebrew at all. It's Aramaic. In Aramaic, a very similar word, Nephilah, simply means giant. It was even the name for the constellation Orion, pictured as a giant chained in the sky. So when Jewish scribes later wrote the word Nephilim, they may have been mixing two ideas at once, falling and giant size. And with these two meanings folded into one word, what happens next made the rest of the story more disturbing. From the Greek translation of the Bible, called the Septuagint, the translators had to pick one Greek word for Nephilim. They chose gigantes, giants. But in Greek myth, gigantes were not just tall. They were earth-born monsters, born from forbidden unions with the gods, who rose up and attacked heaven itself. That is the word the translators chose on purpose. A choice that quietly points forward to exactly what these beings are accused of doing later in the story. Even later translators could not agree either. One version called them those who fall upon others. Another called them simply the violent ones. Every single translation is trying to describe the same thing in a different way. Something dangerous. Something that should not exist. And something connected somehow to the sky. And it doesn't stop there. Even outside those two main appearances, the Bible keeps circling back to the idea, almost like it can't fully let the Nephilim go. A prophet named Ezekiel once described fallen ancient warriors resting in the underworld with their weapons still beside them. Many scholars think that's a quiet nod back to the Nephilim. And through the rest of the Old Testament, giant tribes keep appearing. The Anakim, the Rephaim, the Emim, even Og, king of Bashan, whose bed was said to be 9 cubits long. And, of course, Goliath, the giant who stood against a boy with a sling. None of these are called Nephilim directly, but biblical writers treat them like echoes of that same ancient bloodline. A bloodline that was supposed to have ended long ago, but then it changes whatever came next. Now let's get to where the Nephilim actually show up in the Bible. It only happens twice, but both times the moment is huge. And the first one is the moment everything else in this story hinges on. The first time is Genesis chapter 6, right before the flood. The text says the sons of God looked down and saw human women and found them beautiful. So they took them as wives. And from those unions came the Nephilim. The Bible calls them mighty men of old, men of renown. Right after that line, God looks at the earth, sees how much evil has spread, and decides to send the flood. Which makes what happens next one of the strangest details in the whole Bible. The second time is stranger. It happens in Numbers chapter 13. This is after the flood. Moses sends 12 spies into the land of Canaan to check it out. 10 of them come back terrified. They say giants live there, and they name them Nephilim. They say standing next to these people felt like being a grasshopper. Wait, the flood was supposed to wipe out everyone except Noah's family. So how are there still Nephilim walking around generations later? That contradiction is exactly where scholars start disagreeing. Scholars have three main answers. 1. The spies were exaggerating. They used the scariest word they knew to make the people of Canaan sound impossible to beat. 2. Whatever caused the Nephilim in the first place happened again after the flood. 3. This was just an old legend about giant warrior clans that got passed down and reused. Nobody fully agrees, but every option keeps one thing the same: something enormous, and something not fully human kept showing up in Israelite memory long after it should have been gone for good. And that same unanswered question, who or what actually caused this, is what splits scholars into three very different camps. So who exactly were the sons of God that started all this? On that question, ancient and modern scholars split into three main camps. The oldest camp says the sons of God were literal angels, divine beings who left their place in heaven and came down to earth. This was the most common belief for centuries. It shows up in Jewish writings from the time before Jesus, and early Christian writers believed it too. The pushback is simple. Jesus once said angels don't marry, so how could they have wives? Supporters of this view answer that Jesus was talking about angels who stayed obedient, not the ones who broke the rules. But unfortunately, it was this fallen angel reading that would push further and change what the second camp believes in. The second camp says no, this isn't about angels at all. It's about people. Specifically, the good side of Adam's family, coming from his son Seth, mixing with the corrupted side of the family, coming from Cain. Under this view, the Nephilim were not giants. They were just powerful, cruel men, born once two bloodlines mixed that should not have mixed. The problem is the Bible's wording doesn't line up cleanly with this idea, which is why many scholars have doubts about it. The third camp says the sons of God were kings. Powerful rulers in the ancient world often called themselves divine or sons of God as a political title. Under this view, these kings simply took whatever wives they wanted by force. And the Nephilim were their violent, spoiled offspring. It's a clever theory, but almost no ancient writer actually argued for it. It shows up much later, almost like a way to avoid the stranger, supernatural version of the story. Now, there are three different pictures: angels falling from heaven, two human families colliding, or corrupt kings abusing their power. All three trying to explain the same 4 verses. But while the Bible tells this story in just a few lines, other ancient Jewish writings take that first camp's angel theory and run with it. And what the book of Enoch would reveal would change every extraordinary detail about the Nephilim. In Enoch's version, 200 angels, called the Watchers, stand on a mountain and make a pact. They swear an oath together, then descend to earth to take human wives. Their leader is an angel named Shemihaza, but the wives are not their only crime. One watcher, named Azazel, teaches humans how to forge weapons and armor. Others teach forbidden magic and secret knowledge from heaven, knowledge humans were never supposed to have. And that stolen knowledge doesn't stay harmless for long, because even when the children were born, they turned into something nobody expected. The Nephilim children were enormous, so enormous that human farms can't feed them. So they start eating everything. Then they start eating each other. Then, according to the text, they turn on humans completely. The earth itself cries out for help. 4 archangels hear it and bring the complaint straight to God. God's answer is brutal. the Watchers get chained up in darkness until the final judgment, and the Nephilim are made to slaughter each other in endless war, right before the flood finishes the job. That's the ending everyone knows. But there's another version of this story, one that was buried for 2,000 years, and it tells the ending from the other side. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about. There is a second ancient text found buried in the desert with the Dead Sea Scrolls called the Book of Giants. And this one flips the whole story around. Instead of watching the giants from a distance, it puts you inside their heads. Two of the giant leaders are named Ohia and Haya. They start having terrifying dreams. In one dream, a garden full of trees gets chopped down by 200 gardeners until only one tree with 3 branches survives. In another dream, a great flood rises up and erases every name on earth except 3. Dreams that neither giant understands, which is exactly why they need someone who can. The giants panic. They send another giant named Mawe, who can somehow fly, to track down Enoch and ask him what the dreams mean. Enoch's answer comes back written on 2 tablets. The 200 fallen trees are the 200 Watchers about to be judged. The flood is coming for the giants, and the 3 surviving branches are Noah and his 3 sons, the only ones who will make it through. In other words, the giants are handed their own ending in writing before it happened. The giants read this, and they do not repent. They do not beg for mercy. Instead, one of them stands up and speaks to the others, and together they choose to fight their fate anyway, right up until the end. What makes this scroll so different is the point of view. Every other version of this story treats the giants as monsters to be feared from a distance. This one lets you sit with them while they wait for the end they already know is coming. Fear, bad dreams, a desperate messenger sent flying across the desert for answers, and then silence once the answer arrives and there is nothing left to do but wait. And that silence turns out to be aimed at someone real, a legendary king whose name any ancient reader would have instantly recognized. Here is where the story gets even bigger. Some modern researchers, including scholar Amar Anas, think this entire story was written on purpose as a direct response to an older Mesopotamian legend. In Babylonian myth, there were 7 wise, semi-divine sages called the Apkallu, sent by the gods to teach humans civilization. Kings like Gilgamesh bragged about having Apkallu blood. The theory says Jewish writers took that old, proud legend and flipped it completely upside down. The wise sages became fallen, disgraced angels. Their secret knowledge became forbidden and dangerous, and their proud royal descendants became the doomed, monstrous Nephilim, judged and destroyed by God. Even Gilgamesh himself shows up as one of the giants in the Book of Giants, defeated right alongside them. So this may have been ancient Israel's way of saying that the neighboring empire's proudest legends were nothing but fallen angels and doomed monsters, after all. So what were the Nephilim, really? Fallen ones, giants, warriors, kings. Every generation that has read this story has landed on a different answer, and even the earliest translators could not agree on one single word for them. But one thing stayed the same across every single version. Something crossed a line it was never supposed to cross, and the world was never quite the same after it happened.